What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Off the Top Rope, Off the Mic Sports Network. I don't necessarily, despite what you people may think, I don't necessarily look forward to Thursdays when the ratings come out. I don't. But I feel like every single week, this is just becoming so easy for me to come on here and try and just explain to you why, despite what Tony Khan may tell you, AEW is not in a really good place right now. They're not the best. The best they've ever been, because I knew that AEW was going to beat NXT this week. The reason why is NXT had a sort of fell down because they were going up against the Major League Baseball All-Star game. That's, despite what you may think, baseball in July, the MLB All-Star game, people watch that, okay? They still watch it, okay? And it was actually kind of a very compelling game where it was a 6-0 lead. American League comes back, and then, they do a home run derby for extra innings to decide the winner, which was, I'm not going to get into a big, broad baseball discussion in there, but it made it at least somewhat more compelling. And, that was clearly a direct competitor on network TV to NXT. And NXT, coming off of Great American Bash, they don't really have outside of Obafemi and Trick Williams, really, there's not a whole lot there, at least from a male perspective. And, obviously, their women's division is kind of, rehabilitating a little bit with, obviously the addition of Blake Monroe and then Jordan Grace, and they're clearly going into a feud over that. And, yeah, it's just like, it's very much, the C show and a developmental show at the same time. But I always, find it rich when, the AEW sickos will look for any form of mediocrity to just validate that, hey, we're doing fine. So AEW does beat NXT in the ratings this week, but by 2,000 people. They beat it by more people than were in that building on Wednesday night. 2,000 people, 588,000 to 586 was the official tally. And people are still like, yeah, we won. But hey, I'm supposed to believe that AEW, off their biggest show of the year, one of their biggest show in North America, biggest gate that they've ever done, I'm supposed to believe that with 1,400 people in a building in one of their home away from homes, and they draw sub 600,000 viewers against no competition. Their biggest competition was the ESPYs. Nobody gives a fuck about the ESPYs. They were number one on cable. Whoop-de-doo. Whoop-de-doo. You shouldn't be expecting, off your biggest show of the year where there's interest generated in, you had almost 30,000, you had 20, 30,000 people in a stadium. You shouldn't have been expecting you should have expected to blow away what NXT did. And that's really what's frustrating to me. I'm pulling up ratings from the previous week to kind of illustrate my point of where things are here. So AEW Dynamite, like listen, they were at 637 last week. They've been at 613. Earlier this month in Mexico, they had their best draw, over 700,000 viewers. And it feels like that's their limit. And coming off of a weekend where you should be potentially able to see some growth, barely able to outgross and outrate your direct opposition, who, to me, listen, I like NXT, but from a talent perspective and a box office draw perspective, AEW has NXT beat by a mile. Like, they've got Mercedes Moné and Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page and Jon Moxley. They've got all these mainstream names in the worlds of professional wrestling. The biggest names that are in NXT right now are Ethan Page, who has made a name for himself all over the place, including in AEW, Ricky Saints too, Mariah May, another AEW, who's now Blake Monroe, Jordan Grace, former TNA. Like, they've got mainstream people there, but they don't have the long-term equity in the business that a lot of these people in AEW have. That's why I'm frustrated with all this celebrating. This show used to do 1 million viewers, and here they are off of their WrestleMania with 1,400 people in a unique venue and under 600,000 people, and they beat NXT, who was broadcasting from a performance center because, again, still in some vein is developmental, barely beat them by 2,000 people. If you guys can't see how that is problematic, I don't know what to tell you. Okay? Like, it's just, when you have the resources and the money that Tony Khan is throwing into this place, and you're okay with being under 600,000 against no competition whatsoever, because again, I knew that AEW and Dynamite were going to win this week because they didn't have the All-Star game to compete with. They didn't have the Home Run Derby to compete with. They had the ESPYs. Again, I'm a sports fan. I don't even give a shit about the ESPYs. They're a knockoff Academy Awards thing for sports. Nobody gives a shit about it. It's just, it's wild to me, the ways that people will spin this and try and make it seem like it's some sort of a good thing because they did beat NXT. But it doesn't, listen, again, where you were a month ago, where you were over 700,000 for that Arena Mexico show, and I was like, prove it on a week-to-week basis. And here we are, after your biggest show, your WrestleMania, which should feel like your biggest show. You're in a fucking ballroom, and you draw less than 600,000 people against no competition. Number one on cable, congratulations. Great way to spin it. But it doesn't mean shit. It does not mean shit to the grand scheme of things. And this is why nobody can take this company seriously, because their owner keeps coming out there, changing metrics, changing narratives to try and make it seem like he's doing well. You had all the momentum in the world with what happened at Globe Life, because that was very real, to have that amount of people in a baseball stadium for a big-time show and going with a crowd-pleasing moment. You had all the momentum in the world to potentially carry in new viewership. Why they didn't get any viewers, I have no idea. You know, the part of it is also, hey, I haven't seen how the first quarter and how much of that drop-off was, that maybe some people tuned in to see what was going on with AEW, and they saw this in a fucking ballroom with 1,500 people. And they were like, what the fuck am I watching? I know it's not WWE, but when you come across as that big time for a show, and then you go to about the smallest building you can for a residency, it's not very good optics. I said that yesterday. But to double down on this, it's just like, you're at about the lowest. I mean, it's not the lowest number that they've done. Like, I think they did a lower number earlier this year, but that might have been against some direct competition. There was nothing here, and you barely beat NXT. It didn't mean anything. And listen, can they generate some momentum? Like, they may have squandered one of their best opportunities to, you know, restore the feeling. We'll see. But this was not good news. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.